Happy Thursday. The start of week 3 is already here. I feel like week 2 just ended, but bang, bang, bang in the NFL season. Thursday night games are upon us. This is the No Glitz, No Glamour daily video from Bankster DFS, and this is our week 3 look. Thursday night football, Carolina Panthers versus the Houston Texans. My name is Doug Shane, representing Bankster DFS, where we cover more than just professional football. We cover all the major sports, all the college sports, all the niche sports. Only about 9 days away from the NBA season opening, folks. We still got Major League Baseball going strong, college football season, MMA, PGA is still playing. We got NHL in about 2.5 weeks. And we cover it all at banksterdfs.com. We also, in our Slack chat, have multiple bonus channels where we talk about sports betting, sports cards, World Wrestling Entertainment, AEW. Also, if you're a big fan, great show last night. Bankster University, which is our training wing, where we teach you sort of how to play the game of DFS. And we also have a partnership with Prize Picks DFS. And they'll give you a 100% first-time deposit match up to $100 using the promo code Bankster. There is a link in the description box below if you wish to sign up for that. When you do sign up for Bankster DFS, you are getting those daily player pools, our Slack chat, and award-winning articles and analysis from FSWA award winners like myself, Doug Shane, and Jeff Kaminsky, as well as a number of members on Team Bankster who I believe are future FSWA award winners and the best team in the business. And all this costs you less than a pack of sports cards. $3.99 per week gets you access to everything that we do. No hidden costs, no surprise fees. It's less than $4 a week, get you covered for everything. If you want to lower that effective weekly cost, you can sign up for monthly and yearly memberships as well. And please remember, when you sign up for us, as long as you do not cancel, your price will never increase no matter what we increase our prices to for new members. You will always stay with whatever you sign up for. So sign up now while the price is still really low. BanksterDFS.com, everything, all sports, all content, no hidden fees. You can contact me at Bankster17 if you have any questions, or sign up, BanksterDFS.com/subscribe. For more NFL coverage, you can join myself and Michael Gudadero, the Big Gouda, every Sunday morning, 10:30 in the morning, streaming live on Twitter and our YouTube page for NFL Live Before Lock, where we spend about 90 minutes looking at your GPPs, your cash game plays, all the inactives, how that's going to affect your lineup, answering your questions. You can join us there on Twitter and YouTube, Sunday mornings, 10:30 a.m. And while you're here, please like, share, subscribe, click the notification icon, so you know when we have more videos. Normally we do one video a day. I'm going to try to knock out a second video today as well. Probably looking at some Thursday and Sunday prize picks plays for NFL. That's always a wonderful opportunity to make some money with that. And of course, we'll tell you again how to get the 100% deposit bonus up to $100. But this video right here, we are focusing instead on the Thursday night showdown between the Carolina Panthers and the Houston Texans. Barn burner, folks. Listen, I know it's not the world's greatest game, but the Panthers are playing great, and Houston has been spry. We'll go with spry. Houston has been up for the challenge. They won one game. They lost the game. They've looked decent on offense. Even when Tyrod Taylor got hurt last week, Davis Mills came in and played pretty well in his absence. What did Mills do last week? 8 for 18, not great, but 102 yards and a touchdown. So, little bit of productivity. He was throwing the ball, got some volume, and we expect to see some volume in this game. So here's the thing with this game. Carolina is clearly the better team. They're playing really well this year, 2-0, and the defense looks great. They were sort of a sleeper defense for me coming into the year. I talked about it in the Week 1 preview that I did way back when, about how I think this young defense was really up and coming, particularly on the outside. With Jeremy Chin and J.C. Horn, and boy, that front seven's looking great. They have 9 sacks already through 2 games. 10 sacks, 6 and 4. They're looking fantastic. And of course, Houston with the backup quarterback, and Nico Collins went down, and the running game's not doing much. It looks like Carolina's primed for a big game. And what does that mean? That means they're going to want to run the football, and they're going to play strong defense. So I think there's going to be a lot of Christian McCaffrey, Carolina Panther builds. Whether that's McCaffrey as your captain at $20,000, which is one of the highest numbers I've ever seen for a captain on Showdown, with the Panthers to back him up, or vice versa. The thing that's going to make Christian McCaffrey's roster percentage ridiculously high, besides the fact that he's Christian McCaffrey and Houston's not great against the run and Carolina should win, is it's very easy to make a Christian McCaffrey lineup. Even if you use McCaffrey captain and the Panthers, in your team, which are really priced up for a defense. Oftentimes you see a defense in that $4,000 range. Right now they're sitting at $6,200, which is really high, and deservedly so, but you could still make a lineup pretty easily. If you wanted to move down and take a look at, I'll just throw a couple of names in there that might be within a player pool. You've got Joey Sly for Houston, has been kicking well this year. You've got Terrace Marshall, who is actually, it's weird that Terrace Marshall is cheaper than Brandon Zylstra. Zylstra has only been on the field for 19% of the snaps and only has 3 targets on the season, whereas Terrace Marshall is clearly the third wide receiver for Carolina, but he's been on the field for 52% of the snaps and has had 12 targets this year, and you're getting him for $600 cheaper than Zylstra because Zylstra had the touchdown last week. I think Marshall is a really good play, and I don't know that his roster percentage is going to be overly high. The thing that we're seeing is if we're able to spend up into this range, you can go in and grab a Brandon Cooks and still have about $6,000. Now, if you don't want to use Joey Sly, and you want to use Davis Mills in your lineup, and maybe you don't use Terrace Marshall, okay? There's still an opportunity to go in and grab Chris Conley at $1,600. Chris Conley hasn't done much this year. Trying to pull up these stats. Let's go stats. Come on, computer. Do you not know I'm recording? He's only got 2 targets in each of the first 2 games, but Nico Collins got injured early in the game last week, and Chris Conley was clearly the guy who came in for the majority of the snaps. He had 55 snaps last week compared to Andre Roberts, who only had 22 snaps, and Danny Amendola, who had 12 snaps. Obviously, Brandon Cooks led the way with the most snaps and the most targets, and they're just going to feed him the ball. Mills was just forcing the ball to Cooks, just like Tyrod Taylor did before him, just like last year Deshaun Watson did. Cooks is a great play, even at $10,000, and really easy to fit into the lineup. So if you put Conley in your lineup, you've got Mills, Conley, and Cooks in a game that Carolina does what they did last week, where they jump out to a lead, and they just grind the ball and get a lot of carries to their running backs and play strong defense. Maybe the passing game isn't going to be all that necessary. We know Darnold had 300 yards last week, but maybe they don't need it this week, right? Like, we're telling a story. Every lineup you have should tell a story, and the story here is the Panthers get a big lead and grind the ball. McCaffrey has a good game. The Panthers defense has a good game. Houston has to play catch up. So you throw Mills out there with the top 2 receivers. It's a lot easier to figure out which receivers to play for Houston because the amount of snaps that Cooks and Conley are playing are just so far above every other receiver. Whereas the running backs for Houston, no running back on the team has more than a 40% snap share. So you don't know who the hell to use. They all have some value. Lindsey's pretty good out of the backfield, but so is David Johnson. Ingram's better between the tackles. But you don't really know how they're going to distribute the touches for running backs. So one of them will probably have a fairly decent game, but your guess is as good as mine at this point. I would probably lean Phillip Lindsay because he's the more dynamic player, but I think David Johnson, his receiving ability, it could favor him with the coaches. I'm not really high on Ingram at all in this game. Anyway, when we go about and use this lineup, I do think they're going to throw, so it's a lot easier to predict that passing game. That leaves you with $3,600 to take a look at Joey Sly, who, again, has kicked quite a few field goals for Houston. He's got a huge leg. It's a revenge game for Joey Sly, going up against the Carolina team that he was on in the past and has had really good seasons for, and then he got a little bit of the yips and they cut him. And so he might be motivated, particularly with this game in Houston, which is a great kicking surface. And then you got Chuba Hubbard. And Chuba Hubbard's a really interesting play because last week when New Orleans was dominating, they gave Christian McCaffrey a little bit of a rest. Christian McCaffrey is known for being almost like the Cal Ripken of the NFL, which is ironic to say because McCaffrey missed most of the games last year with an injury. But when he plays, he's an Iron Man. He gets 95% of the snaps for Carolina year in, year out. I mean, a stud running back, a really big workhorse running back, 75, 80% of the snaps. McCaffrey's at 95% most years. Well, this year, not so much. This year, McCaffrey is quote-unquote only at 79% of the snaps. Chuba is getting 19% of the snaps. He had 8 carries last week in a blowout win. If we tell the story that Carolina is going to pull away in this game, and we know Houston's not great against the run, and they're going to play catch-up, and Carolina's going to grind the clock, maybe we don't run a kicker like Joey Sly, who I think is a very good play in this spot and fits salary-wise. But maybe you run Chuba Hubbard out there. I don't know that the roster percentage on Chuba Hubbard is going to be all that high. So I do think if you want to be a little bit different, because I don't think this build right here, pulling Chuba out, is all that different. I think a lot of people are going to be on this build that you see in front of you right now. McCaffrey is your captain, Panthers, Mills, Conley, Cooks, and it'll probably end up with Joey Sly. People who are sharp to the game are going to see that Sly is going to be, the revenge game narrative, and he gets a lot of points, and Houston's going to have to kick field goals. They want to score points to at least kind of keep them in the game with Carolina early on. I think this is going to be fairly chalky build. Maybe you throw Chuba Hubbard in there. You leave a couple of bucks on the table, which you can absolutely do in Showdown. $500 is nothing to leave on the table in Showdown. And you've differentiated yourself maybe just a little bit. Now, if we find out as we get closer to lock, and we'll talk about this in our Slack chat for members only, which comes included with your $4.99 membership. $3.99 membership. $4.99. We didn't raise the prices. Come on, Doug. If we find that the Chuba build is going to be more chalky, we'll talk about that in our Slack chat, and we'll get you onto Sly or maybe onto Ian Thomas or Jordan Akins. We'll find a way to get you that information, of course. We'll find the right place for that. So if you want to be a little bit different but still have that McCaffrey with the Houston passing game run back, this is the way that we can go about doing that. Of course, if you want to be different at all, completely different without running McCaffrey, but you still want to get McCaffrey in your lineup, so you throw McCaffrey in as a flex. I do think McCaffrey is going to be like 85-90% owned, and I think he should be. He should be on your team. Maybe run a couple of teams without McCaffrey, but he's clearly the best play, and you don't want to have a McCaffrey score 30 points, then you don't have him. It was like on Monday night, if you don't have Aaron Jones, and I did not, you were pretty much gone from the offset. So we don't want to necessarily do that. We want to still have that exposure to McCaffrey. If he has a McCaffrey game, even if he's not your captain, perhaps you can differentiate yourself enough to make some money in your tournaments. What we would do then is maybe we fade the Panthers defense at this point. Okay, so that's right now we're becoming a little bit different because again, McCaffrey Panthers is going to be a fairly chalk build, and you throw literally anyone else in your captain spot. For me, I still tell that same story of Carolina doing the running game and grinding out the win and coming up with the big one, but maybe we really believe in that passing game for Houston. Not that we believe they're going to have a huge game, but maybe they're going to score enough to sustain putting Brandon Cooks in your captain spot. We don't like to put quarterbacks in the captain spot because 75 to 80% of GPPs and showdowns are won by running backs and receivers in the captain spot. So we want to put Cooks there. We're going to use him anyway. He's clearly the number one target. He has 21 targets through 2 games. Mills looked for him a ton. Scored more than 20 points in each of his first 2 games. 10 grand's a lot, but he could put up 20 points, and as your captain, that means he's putting up 30 points because you get the 1.5 times. That's as long as McCaffrey doesn't have a bonkers 50-point game, you're still in the game with Brandon Cooks if he does what he's been doing already this year. You obviously want to stack him with Davis Mills, and now we've got $4,400. We're not at that 3,000 range, so let's throw in that passing attack still for Houston, and we'll take Chris Conley in there. And now we're sitting at $5,800. I like Dan Arnold in this matchup. Dan Arnold is a really interesting play. He has only seen 39% of the snaps for Carolina compared to 62% for Ian Thomas. But Dan Arnold has 7 targets on the year, and Thomas has only 4 targets. Even more importantly, if we go deeper into the stats, Ian Thomas, when he's on the field, only runs a pass route 58% of the time. He's far more of a blocking tight end, whereas Dan Arnold runs a route 95% of the time he's on the field. He's not necessarily getting targeted every single time, but he is going out to get a potential target by running around 95% of the time he's on the field. They don't bring in Dan Arnold to block. And the Houston Texans have given up big games to tight ends. 7 targets to James O'Shaughnessy week 1. And then last week, they gave up a multitude of targets to 3 different tight ends. I think each of the 3 tight ends had 3 or more targets for Cleveland against Houston last week. So they're soft in the middle, and the tight end should be able to do something in this game. And I think if you're going to run a tight end, Dan Arnold's the guy. I actually feel like Ian Thomas might be the name people will look to, except for the fantasy quote-unquote experts. If you're in the know on Twitter, people love Dan Arnold. So the sharps will be on Dan Arnold, but I think the public might be a little more on Ian Thomas, which helps by throwing Arnold into your lineup, which gives you $6,800, which allows you to run that defense or run Mark Ingram. Or maybe you don't run Dan Arnold. Maybe we still believe in the Chuba Hubbard build. But because we've got Cooks in there as our captain, we can then run a Robbie Anderson out there in our lineup. And we've got a little bit of differentiation because not too many people are going to be on the Carolina passing game. Of course, we could just go with the Carolina passing game, with DJ Moore, Sam Darnold, Christian McCaffrey, and pretty much fade the Houston passing game altogether. And I throw McCaffrey in there because, again, we're not necessarily avoiding McCaffrey. But maybe you do go out there and you get Conley in there, and you get Chuba in there, and then you don't have enough to get to Dan Arnold, but you can run Terrace Marshall out there. We discussed why Marshall could be a good play, and now you're kind of rolling out with the big passing game for the Carolina Panthers. Maybe you don't run Chuba out there, and you still got $3,800, so you run a Zane Gonzalez, or you go with the Joey Sly revenge game to get a little more Houston exposure. That's going to make your lineup real different. Again, you want to go super different. I don't recommend this necessarily, but you want to go a little bit crazy. Okay, so maybe you take Christian McCaffrey out of your lineup altogether. You take Joey Sly out of your lineup. Maybe you believe Chuba will get more work, or you want to get that Dan Arnold play in there. Maybe run Davis Mills out there. We don't have enough for Dan Arnold in that build, so you go to the Dan Arnold build. Where's my Dan Arnold? 4,800. That leaves you 6,500, which does not allow you to use the Panthers defense. We don't want to go to Ingram anyway. Again, this lineup's way different. I don't love this lineup. I'm not going to run this lineup, but I'm just showing what we can do if Christian McCaffrey's not in your lineup. But I do think there's an opportunity to differentiate with Christian McCaffrey in your lineup by running a Houston player as your captain, or by focusing on that passing game of Carolina and just having McCaffrey in there, and maybe not using a McCaffrey, Joey Sly on the Houston side, Panthers defense stack, right? Maybe we try to avoid some of that. I do think the players that we want to focus on in terms of differentiation are Dan Arnold. I do think Chris Conley is going to be popular with people who are following snap count, but I'm not so sure he'll be popular with the general public. But at his price point, especially because if you're only looking at box scores, you only see those two targets. But those who are kind of in the know will have Conley. So the sharper players will have Conley. The less sharp players will not have Conley, most likely. I think Chuba Hubbard's a play that we can absolutely take a look at. This Phillip Lindsay, David Johnson duo, one of them should have an okay game. Run a couple different lineups. As we always say at Bankster, when in doubt, make more lineups. So run one with Lindsay, run one with Johnson, perhaps. And I do think that Terrace Marshall, being priced at $4,000, again, people who are in the know are going to look at Terrace Marshall and realize that he's running more snaps and has the bigger upside and could be in play for this game at $4,000 a steal. People who are just looking at the touchdowns or just looking at some stats and not paying that much attention to targets are going to look at Zylstra and go, oh, well, he got the 3 targets last week and a touchdown, and he's averaging more points per game. And he could score again today. I just think that Marshall's the guy that we're going to want to take a look at. And I do think both kickers are in play. More so Joey Sly, though he'll be a little chalkier. Not touching the Texans defense. The tight ends for Houston are kind of a mess. With Danny Amendola out, let's see what's the note here on Anthony Miller. See, they're looking like he could play. Well, Anthony Miller playing this week with Danny Amendola out? I did not see that. I did not realize he was healthy this week. See, look at me being on top of things. Anthony Miller could end up getting a bunch of snaps in the slot for Houston, and he could be a guy that's going to get garner some targets if he's active this week, which, you pivot off of Chris Conley and you get Anthony Miller, or people are all over Miller because he's a much more known name than Chris Conley, and that lowers the roster percentage for Conley. We're going to keep an eye on that. I'm recording this at 10:15 in the morning. The game doesn't kick off for 10 more hours. We will monitor this and update it in our Slack chat. But really the point of this video is less about the individual plays. It's to throw some fun stats at you, and we were able to do that with Arnold and Chuba and Marshall and Conley and the Houston running backs, but it's to talk about how we can configure our lineup a little bit differently, because to get off of that McCaffrey Panthers chalk, Panthers defense, how can we configure our lineups a little bit differently to stand a chance in our tournaments? Obviously, we want to take a look at tournaments with a lower field size. I like 1,200 or less people, single or 3 max entries, because you're going to find that roster percentage centers around the chalk, and you don't have to be wildly different. You don't have to roster Pharaoh Brown, who'll carry no roster percentage. You don't have to roster him to be different. You can roster Brandon Cooks as your captain instead of McCaffrey, and that's different enough in a smaller field, lower max entry type of a tournament. And we want to do that because we don't want to have to get overly wild. We don't want the 1%er to be the guy we have to have. It's okay that a guy like Cooks, who's going to be 40% rostered, but maybe only 13% rostered as a captain, is different enough, and that's what we want to do. Folks, if you like what you're hearing, please don't forget that you can head on over to banksterdfs.com for $3.99 a week. You get access to all of our content, professional sports, major sports, minor sports, niche sports, college sports, for under $4 a week. Everything is covered, no hidden fees, and your price stays locked for as long as you stay with us as a member. Questions sent over to Bankster17 on Twitter. Subscriptions, banksterdfs.com/subscribe. My name has been and will continue to be Doug Shane. Thank you so much for spending your Thursday morning and afternoon with us. We look forward to seeing you in the future. 10:30 a.m. Sunday, live streaming on Twitter and YouTube with Michael Gudero, NFL Live Before Lock. Again, my name is Doug Shane, banksterdfs.com. Have yourself a wonderful day.